going on? So I know that when since I got the video, let me get this camera straight. I almost forgot the reason I did these. And I think the reason I explained why I do them was, of course, me necessarily getting out of my comfort zone. That was number one. But also number two was to help, I guess, living up here, make it a better process. Because I think for most of us, we all live inside our heads and pretty much follow whatever that little voice inside our head tells us to do, or at least what it'll tell us to do in our best interest. And usually my best interest comes to actually trying to make sure my mental health is straight. And that kind of is sort of the reason why I made these. Yeah, there we go. Because that's something on a personal note that I know I've had to deal with for a long time and have come to grips with over the years. Especially when it comes to like dealing with a bunch of emotions that you don't understand. And I know the biggest emotion I dealt with over the years was my anger. And of course, over the years, yeah, it got better. Because, I mean, I matured a lot. I've dealt with a lot of experiences that I could go on for days about. But every now and again, it decides to creep up. And sometimes in a bad situation that you necessarily put yourself in, or necessarily it'll show up when you're in a good space, and then all of a sudden just something just triggers it immediately, and then it ends up usually in a huge disarray, and you wish you could take that moment back. And because, I mean, for some people, when it comes to like anger, they usually try to bottle it up, especially for guys. We don't usually try to show the range of emotions that we know we have, because it's seen as quote unquote soft, or necessarily you acting like a bitch or something like that. But that's usually leads to other problems when you don't actually express those emotions, I guess maybe in a good, healthy manner, or trying to channel them in certain ways. Which is why, another reason why I did these, because they sort of help that process. And also kind of keeps my anger at bay a little bit, even though I haven't really been like overly angry over the years, because of the fact that I learned to control it. I've learned what to do with it. I learned what happens when I do get angry. But I also know how to channel it, which is why when I first started to become interested in writing, I realized certain feelings I had went away a lot quicker when I actually focused on maybe writing words on paper. But also, when I do these, it kind of makes it a little easier to deal with yourself after you, I guess, expelled all of those inside feelings that you've had and necessarily didn't know how to express them until you found a way to do so. Yeah. Honestly, I think that's a real big problem, necessarily, especially amongst the Black community, because of the fact that we are an emotional people, and the fact that we recognize that or should recognize it actually, because our emotions have a lot to do with our mental health, and that's another issue we actually have to deal with, which is what is necessarily going on inside our cerebral cortex. Because amongst our community, it's always been seen as somewhat of, I want to say, a detriment to necessarily want to better your mind as well as other things, even though necessarily it makes more sense to take care of your mind first before everything else, because there's been a stigma, I guess, of saying that you could be considered crazy for going to the doctor about what's going on mentally with you. Unnecessarily, like, acknowledging your feelings is considered in the category of being, I guess, bad, even though necessarily that doesn't make any sense. Because if you're trying to fix an issue, necessarily you want to solve that issue with a solution, because that's how you solve a problem. Because mental health is a problem in our community, Black community. I mean, because if it wasn't a problem, then there'd be less suicides in our community. Probably a lot less murders, and a lot less discord and dissonance within our families. Yeah, because I even said in a video before we even have a revolution, there has to be a mental revolution first. Because I don't think people still recognize the effects of slavery is still necessarily a huge integral part in what the degradation of what of our people are dealing with at this very moment. Because it's definitely a detriment to the kids who are stuck in special ed for no freaking reason, because they have white teachers trying to necessarily discipline them or necessarily discredit them on the fact that they're actually kids, and then try to put them on drugs or put them in stupid ass special ed. But nobody wants to talk about that. And then, of course, we have men who look like me and others, young Black men who are up in the age of 18 to 30 and so on and so forth, be put through a system that was not built for them and necessarily has a systematic agenda to take out every single one of us, as well as the women, but more so as the men, because of the fact that the men are seen as the authoritative figure within our culture. And the best way to disenfranchise a race or try to dismantle a race is to take that person out, as far as the authoritative figure is concerned. Man, but that's a whole spiel that I could pretty much go on for days and days and days. So I'm just gonna cut it short right here and make a part 2. So be looking out for that. Peace.